Burkinabe coup leader Colonel Paul Henry Santiago Damiba Monday was received by Ivory Coast by the country's President Alassane Ouattara after meeting with his Malian counterpart Colonel Assimi Goïta in Mali. The aim of the visit in both countries was to strengthen military, economic and financial cooperation. In Mali, Paul Henry Santiago Damiba evoked the issue of the challenges which confront the Malian transition and also the Burkinabe government in power. They agreed to reinforce the military partnership between the two countries in order to overcome the security challenges in the region. In the same vein, the visit coincided with the release of 3 Ivorian female soldiers, part of a group of the 49 Ivorian military detained in Mali since July. In Ivory Coast, the Burkinabe leader expressed his will to return his nation to civilian rule, amongst others. Today, we are analyzing this visit across West Africa by Burkinabe leader and this edition of Voice It. Stay with us. Hello Africa and the world, thank you immensely for joining us on a fresh dose of Voice It over your Pan-African channel 4U Media. If you're watching us on 4U Television or following us over 4U Radio FM 96.3, today we're discussing the tour made by Burkinabe leader in West Africa where he first visited Mali and then Ivory Coast. Of course, they discussed a series of issues. They discussed the military cooperation, economic as well as financial cooperation amongst the countries. And of course, I'm not alone on today's edition of Voice It. I'm joined by Mr. Nje Lucas, who is a human rights activist as well as a political analyst here in Cameroon. Good day, sir.
Good afternoon, Jigs. It's a pleasure, and good afternoon to everyone in the studio. I think the topic which we have got to discuss today has a lot to do with the future of Africa, given that we are looking at countries that are coming in to serve as the eye-opener to many other African countries who are yet to understand that the French government is not there for any good. Rather, the French government is basically there to destroy. And if you look at the person from Burkina Faso heading over to Mali, I think it's because we have got a lot to make change in Africa, which is the time, and Africans should not relent, because I think this is a wonderful move. In as much as some persons may not appreciate our military governance, but I want to say that before you take a person's position, they must behave as a person who understands better.
Okay, sir, before we get down to today's topic of discussion, I'd like you to listen to this detailed report compared to us by our newsroom first. Take a listen. The Ivorian head of state Alassane Ouattara reiterated the availability of Ivory Coast to resume and strengthen economic as well as financial cooperation with Burkina Faso. He made this affirmation during a joint press briefing with Lieutenant Colonel Paul Henry Santiago Damiba, President of Burkinabe Transition, on a working visit to Ivory Coast. Cooperation between the two countries was broken after the last military coup in Burkina Faso on January 24, 2022. President Ouattara hailed the efforts made by Burkina Faso while expressing his confidence in the commitment made by the transition before the ECOWAS bodies. In that regard, Burkina Faso's military leader, Colonel Paul Henry Santiago Damiba, affirmed he will honor a promise to restore civilian rule within 2 years. As a reminder, under the 24-month transition agreement struck in July with the West African Regional Bloc ECOWAS, the military rulers pledged to hold elections that will return the country to civilian rule. Regarding the terrorist attacks in Burkina Faso, Alassane Ouattara congratulated his counterpart for all the efforts made to control the terrorist attacks, assuring his support at the bilateral level and even within the framework of the Accra Initiative. For his part, the president of Burkina Faso assured that the commitment made by Burkina Faso to the international community would be respected. However, both leaders have agreed to review the military partnership in order to better meet the security challenge facing the two countries.
It's worth noting that before Burkinabe leader Lieutenant Colonel Paul Henry Santiago Damiba, before he went to Ivory Coast, he first stopped at Mali, where he met with the head of the transitional government, Colonel Assimi Goïta, to talk military cooperation. Take a listen.
The president of the Malian transition, Colonel Assimi Goïta, gave a warm welcome to his counterpart from Burkina Faso, Colonel Paul Henry Sandaogo Damiba. The president of Faso, after the welcome with honors, the two heads of state had a one-on-one meeting at the Kuluba Palace. Subsequently, the audience will be extended to the delegations of the two transition presidents. The exchanges between the two personalities focus on bilateral cooperation and issues of common interest. We made a friendly visit to Mali today as part of the cooperation that exists between Burkina Faso and Mali, but it was also fashionable for us who are in a period of transition to come to the authorities of the Republic of Mali to have a framework for sharing and exchange around the challenges faced by the transition of the Mali side and also on the Burkina Faso side, declared President Damiba of his visit. A visit that comes at the time when 3 soldiers of the 49 Ivorian mercenaries detained in Mali since July 10th have been released. This trip by President Paul Henry Damiba to Mali is his very first trip abroad since he took power in Burkina Faso on January 24, 2022. It should be noted that after the Mali destination, Lieutenant Colonel Sandaogo Damiba will go to the Ivory Coast this Monday, September 5th, given the tension that is straining to relationship between Abidjan and Bamako. It is therefore important for Africans to learn to accept their mistakes. It is therefore important for Africans to learn to accept their mistakes and reconcile when necessary.
So, Mr. Nje Lucas, haven't listened to both reports regarding the visit of Burkinabe leader in West Africa, first to Mali and then to Ivory Coast. What evaluation can you make out of this visit in both nations?
Colonel Henry, which I'll rather go by this, understands exactly what is involved within the sub-region, and he would do everything within his power to ensure that the purpose for which this coup was actually broke should be effectively put in place, which it is worth mentioning that when he came to power, he has brought in former leaders and persons who contributed to kill Thomas Sankara. And this is to tell you how far the colonel is willing to rebuild the nation, and to tell you how far he is willing to rebuild the bilateral relationship, which many think would rather fall. And it is telling already that they did not take over power as military rulers because they will not want civilian rule. Like I said in my introduction, many who may not actually go by what I uphold would think that this is absolute autocracy. But I want to say that the military leaders understand exactly, because these are persons who have taken command from their predecessors, whom maybe they did not get it the way they are having it today, in the sense that at the time they were taking command to execute certain functions, they had it as Republican military men, and today they are seen as military men who are leaders of the same republic. So whatever capacity they did and whatever capacity they are holding today, they are all leaders goal that they have, and that goal is to ensure that Africa is not seen as the white man's garden. And it is against this backdrop which he had to make this visit to Mali to meet his counterpart Assimi Goïta, who many understands that he is the choice of the people, though he is a military personnel. Because if we observe some months ago, we noticed quite well that Malians came out in their large number and said they prefer him, and they denounced the French in Mali. This is telling that even with the Burkinabe mission, which many people thought it was going to serve for the good of the Malians long before now knew they never had that opportunity to have that person who will come out to support their plights. We have been seeing this in many African countries. If I should take the case of Cameroon, I'll be telling you that there are Cameroonians who are already telling you, how is it possible for us to take off that 10% which the French president mentioned about in Cameroon through the journalist who asked the question that before now, France had over 40-something% economic influence in Cameroon, and today they are left with just about 10%. So I want to say that Colonel Henry and Assimi Goïta, they know exactly what their country wants. And like I said, it was explained in a very simple manner by the acceptance of persons who took part in killing Thomas Sankara. We shouldn't forget that when we talk about Thomas Sankara today, we are talking about a nationalist. We are talking about a man who did not see any other reason rather to see Africa become what she deserves. So their meeting, as we all know, as was reported by the excerpt, they are meeting to discuss a whole lot. They have a whole lot of similarities. And one of these similarities that I have is the leadership of their country. They are all military men. They are all colonels. They are all military men. They are all leaders of their respective countries. And the second thing they have in common is they are having the same person whom I really do not like this appellation, colonial master. Howbeit, I will talk about an oppressor who had a heavy hand on the people and is still having a heavy hand in a very subtle way. I will not call it a colonial master because people accept to have masters. And in this case, we did not accept to have the kind of master which, when I think about it, I always feel like I should cry, because that comes up every now and then because of the things they did and some of the things they are still doing to the Africans and to the African continent at large. So when you look at all of this, these are some of the common elements. And they also have as a common element the militia groups. And with regards to the aspect of the militia groups, only one country is sponsoring these militia groups, while other countries are coming behind it because of their own treaties to support, which in this case is still France. The militia groups that we have are all being sponsored by France. In as much as we have the British, we have the Americans also in the African continent. However, their being in the African continent cannot be compared to what the French people have. So this is also something very common. And another common element is the aspect of the decision to drop the France CFA or the French currency, which they are all using. And another common element is that they have been sanctioned by their own bloc, which is also another common element. So they have a whole lot to discuss together. And another common element is, beside the sanction by their own bloc, they also have sanctions and funny perceptions that many have out there about them from other countries, which in this case, it has to do with some Western countries and some African countries, not limiting it to their own bloc. And they also have as a common element the perception and the vision of Muammar Gaddafi. Because this is something a whole lot of Africans, or many Africans, do not know. And I think it is also good for these guys to understand this, that these are persons with the vision of Muammar Gaddafi, and they know exactly how to nationalize and how to liberate their countries. So these are all the things which they had to discuss in camera as a political analyst, as a human rights defender. I want you to understand that these are all things which they discussed behind closed cameras or behind the cameras. And those we had on cameras are the things which they say, and they still said it in quotes, that they have a whole lot to discuss. They did not open on to us what they have to discuss, because the crux of the matter cannot be discussed in camera. It should be in camera. If we allow it for the public to know, then they must have failed, because we know exactly that we have persons who have decided to serve as spies and those who are puppets, and we have those who have decided to serve as spies and they want to destroy the same African continent. So Colonel Henry and Colonel Assimi Goïta have a whole lot in common. And to also let you understand that he was moving because it comes a few days after the mercenaries which Alassane Dramane Ouattara had refused, that these were not mercenaries. Because I did follow the report with Alassane Dramane Ouattara and other persons in Côte d'Ivoire made, that I think the 26 persons that were arrested who were mercenaries paid.
49 you supposed to say?
49, yes, yes. These were persons that were paid to continue with the militia groups in Mali and was arrested. And the government in Côte d'Ivoire, they tried to refuse this. And it is but obvious that with the intelligence of Colonel Assimi Goïta and with the support of the Malians, they were able to bring out these facts to the world, and the Ivorian government had no choice but to accept that these persons were militias. And because of the bilateral relationship and because of the Pan-Africanism which we have in Assimi Goïta, he had to accept that this person be sent over, be handed over, and be cautioned. So this will tell you that the problems we are having in Africa, we have Africans at the center, and we have greed at the center to continue with these proxies which France has and which the West in general has. I think we have a lot to discuss about this, and we shall be looking into this closely to see the possible reasons for Colonel Henry's visit, and to see how things could go back and how things could function within. And I also want to mention that though the former president or the person whom Assimi Goïta takes over, his predecessor, I think he died.
Alpha Condé?
Yeah,
no, not so to say.
Yes, yes. Though he died, and I want you to understand that he was not treated as a criminal. That is to tell you that we want to build a country. We don't want to build the African continent by destroying persons of different opinion. We want to build. That is why Colonel Henry decided that even those who killed Thomas Sankara, Compaoré, should come back home. I dove my heart for Thomas Sankara and his family. I dove my heart for every African nationalist that was taken down. I dove my heart, and I sent praises to Colonel Henry and to Colonel Assimi Goïta of Mali.
Exactly, you have cited a lot of powerful points, and of course you did mention that very significant for two co-leaders in two powerful nations in West Africa to meet the insecurity that is actually affecting the region. But then to move to Ivory Coast, the two leaders, Burkinabe leader and that of the president of Ivory Coast, President Alassane Ouattara, they did discuss economic as well as financial cooperation. Now, given that there is an economic impasse that's hovering across around the African continent at the time, and various heads of state are seeing how they could put in place measures to tackle this economic problem. Now, what do you think this economic cooperation means for Burkina Faso as well as Ivory Coast?
There is a lot with regards to this. We shouldn't forget that recently sanction of ECOWAS that affected Mali, and there was also a sanction that was meted on Mali and Burkina Faso. And these sanctions had a lot to do with their economies. And to have discussed this, it is because Côte d'Ivoire is becoming the new mediator within the ECOWAS. And I want to also reiterate that let these leaders not take the facial expression of Alassane Dramane Ouattara to mean that he is as pure as he is, in the sense that when there was the plan for the ECOWAS to come into existence, those who had to leak out this information to France came from Côte d'Ivoire. So we should also bear in mind that these things they play a lot. And I also want to say that these two are not persons who do not understand what is on the ground. I will be calling on them not to go against what they have galvanized support for, in the sense that in Africa, as we have seen in recent time, Abidjan is becoming the new mediator between the French and the African countries, which France had once a heavy hand in its physical presence and is equally having a heavy hand in its new colonialist situations that we have today. So it is worth mentioning that Alassane Dramane Ouattara calls these people. It is not just a visit that somebody can sit and request for, that I want to visit you. Alassane Dramane Ouattara, like I mentioned, is becoming the new mediator that the French think they can use on the ground to see that they don't lose it all, because they still find it very difficult to believe that especially the Barkhane mission that was put to an end, and they still find it very difficult that they don't have an embassy in Mali. They still find it very difficult, and so given that Colonel Henry is in communication with Assimi Goïta, he believes that in one way or another they could have something which he can discuss to see, as we always put it in our own local parlance, that my friend's friend is my friend. And just as we have it where Facebook will always want to tell you that this person is a friend to this person, to see that you also become friends to that person. This is the position. Like I said, Côte d'Ivoire and Alassane Dramane Ouattara stood at the forefront when certain decisions were taken against Mali, especially when they decided to remove the leader, and also against Burkina Faso. So this will tell you already in jigs that if we are not very careful, we should not take the hands being stretched by Alassane Dramane Ouattara of Côte d'Ivoire to mean that Abidjan is fully in support, because Abidjan still has a lot to do with the French, and so we should not take it as light as we see it, because I still have some reservations with regards to this. I want to see it completely that Côte d'Ivoire is not playing
Mr. Tanje Lucas? Yes, right on, sir.
Yes, there are discussions centered around a whole lot that has to do with their economies and the rest. But I want to say that they cannot open onto us exactly what was discussed. They discussed about the economy, yes. What exactly was what did they center on? Is it that some of the economic sanctions given to Mali, because Mali is still under economic sanctions, it has not been uplifted completely yet, and so is it that they are going to remove these sanctions? It's the same thing with Burkina Faso. So is it that they have completely uplifted these sanctions, which of course it's not there? So I understand that Alassane Dramane Ouattara is seemingly becoming the mediator because of the aspect of language. Yes, he's becoming the mediator because of the aspect of language, which I think this is the major reason why he is sent by other ECOWAS members to mediate between these countries And like it was said that they discussed also on how they can hand over the military rulership to civilians. And I want to say that for civilians, I understand that in times like this, the military comes in with something that should handle the country and take it back to where many see it. But I want to say that we should not be in a haste to hand this over to civilians, in the sense that, take this, because I know so many people are watching and they may have a contrary view. Howbeit, I would want to reiterate that we are not advocating that it should go back to civilian rule because we want to see the change which we have in place. We want that if it's going back to civilian rule, the civilians should resonate with the people. They should not resonate with, they should not be puppets, like was the case before, where the former leader of Mali was more of a puppet.
Yeah.
Which of course we shouldn't forget. Yes, we shouldn't forget that the cause of this coup, which is today becoming close to 3 years of the military rule, is coming from when there was the mismanagement of the parliament, when there was the mismanagement of the parliamentary elections that were about taking place by the former leader.
Yeah.
Ibeka. Yes, Abubakar Keita. So we should also remember that if we do not put these things properly in place, Africans will be misled and it will not help us, because these are persons who now understand what Thomas Sankara stood for, which I still tell others that Thomas Sankara still stands for, because Thomas Sankara is in almost every one of the Africans who understand exactly what nationalism is all about. You still find Muammar Gaddafi still in all of these guys. These are all persons who understood, they studied the Gaddafi's philosophy, the Patrice Lumumba philosophy, the Thomas Sankara philosophy, and the list will go on and on and on for nationalists in Africa in time past. And we have all of these guys, they are all incarnated. We have these are persons who do incarnate these people. You have Patrice Lumumba, who is incarnated in Boubacar Keita. You have Thomas Sankara, who is also incarnated in the person of Abubakar Keita. He incarnates Abubakar Keita. We have Muammar Gaddafi also. We also have Jerry Rawlings, who just passed of recent. We also have the founder and the pioneer leader of Ghana that we all know, who is also being incarnated in these persons, because these are persons who have decided that Africa should grow. We also have Africans who were also born in America, in the person of the Martin Luther King Jr. We also have Nelson Mandela in all of these people. So all of these people, anybody who speaks the contrary in Africa doesn't love Africa. And for the fact that in recent time we have also seen in the likes of the president of Cote d'Ivoire, Alassane Ouattara, calling back Laurent Gbagbo and others, whom I want to hear that Guillaume Soro also was also giving that amnesty, that hand, because if you can remember, Guillaume was also indicted and was also considered to be a rebel in Cote d'Ivoire. So I think beginning with persons like Laurent Gbagbo, I think it's also telling. But I want to say that let Assimi Goïta and Henry not take the hand being given by Alassane Ouattara lightly. I know it is seemingly seen by many as the olive branch, but I want to say that for the fact that the gentleman, the colonel, is this capable to call back persons who killed Thomas Sankara, this tells that he is willing to build Burkina Faso. We are willing to build Africa. We are willing to make Africa great, not great again, because Africa is great. Africa has never fallen. Africa has had terrible leaders. Africa still remains great, and we want that greatness to also be communicated to young Africans.
Indeed, we want the greatness to be communicated to the young generations to come. Away from economic and financial cooperation, let's talk insecurity, not just of course, Mali and Burkina Faso, but we talk insecurity in the G5 Sahel region, where a few weeks ago we had Burkina Faso and Niger that asked Mali to actually rejoin the G5 Sahel group. But shortly after that, we see a Burkinabe leader heading to Mali to talk with Colonel Assimi Goïta regarding military cooperations between both countries. Now, what is your take on this move by the two leaders?
You know, I observed that the Burkinabe military was actually taken off the G5, like you said, and I think this is because they think that they do not have the pedigree because of the fact that they now have such leadership. But I want to say that it is not solving the problem in the Sahel. It is not solving the G5 problem. We should not forget that we are fighting militia groups created by therefore the economic situation within these countries. Basically, we had earlier mentioned about the causes of insecurity in countries, where we said poverty is part of it, lack of political will is part of it, and we also have power mongering. We also have proxies, which are all the causes of militia groups in most countries. But I want to say that with regards to the case of Burkina Faso being taken off, it is not because Burkina Faso does not have the qualified military. It is because the pressure which they think they want to exert on Burkina Faso could not work, and so she finds no reason to be there. And she understands, yes, she understands.
Yes, sir. Sorry to cut you short, but of course we want to just reiterate that Mali was the one who left the G5 Sahel because she complained that there was no support from the other nation states that were tackling insecurity in the region. And now Burkina Faso with Niger, seeing that insecurity is actually eating up the Sahel region, decided to ask Mali to come back.
Yes, it is but obvious that when Assimi Goïta made this statement that the support was relatively very limited, it was a calculated attack because they wanted to weigh down the Malian military. We should be able to understand these things. Now, the countries which are still holding very tight with Elysee Palace could not understand the direction from where the Malians were coming. Firstly, you have to understand that once there is a military leadership in a country, that country needs more finances, that country needs more arsenals, that country needs more military support, in a nutshell. And these countries were not contributing not because they could not contribute. These countries were not contributing because they had been told that this will weaken the Malians and they would want to see reasons as to why they can easily hand over the leadership. I want to give the viewers two major points as to why these persons were not contributing. It is because, one, it is because they think it would weaken the Malian military, thereby they will have an easy path to hand over to the civilian population or the civilian rulership. Two, it was a ploy put up by the French through some of these persons who are serving as proxies, with the mind that once the Malian military is broken down, they will see no reason to close up the Barkhane mission. And this will tell you very well that as the Barkhane mission came to an end, the Malians had to take over that area of control. And taking over that area of control demands more military finances, which is very obvious because the militia groups created by the West, with France championing it, is to destabilize the Sahel for their personal gains. We should not forget that when we talk about uranium and many more, which they do not even produce in France, but they have the highest sales and they receive the highest money for these things in the world market. So when you put all of these things together, you will see exactly where they are coming from, and you will see exactly why the French people had to instigate a whole lot within the Sahel and to see that the Malians are weakened because they thought it was going to serve for their good. But I want to appraise Assimi Goïta once more. I want to praise him once more. I want to congratulate him once more because he has done a lot. So they are trying to use Henry as an easy path to meet him. I want to, like I said, his mission from Mali to Côte d'Ivoire is not a spontaneous move. It is a well-calculated move by other members of the Sahel, and Burkina Faso is the only member who, after Mali decided and left the Union, is doing its best to have Mali back. Not because Mali contributes the highest, it's because Mali plays a very significant role with regards to her military. You know, it is an integral part of a body which, once a particular part is not functioning, every other part feels the weight and gets the weight and feels the pinch. So that is the principal reason why all of this is coming up today. So I want you to understand that this issue of calling Colonel Henry into Côte d'Ivoire by Alassane Dramane Ouattara, it is to see that he speaks to his peer and to speak to his principal peer in this case, who is Assimi Goïta, to see reasons why they all have to continue together. Which I want to say that Assimi Goïta is not refusing per se. Assimi Goïta is simply giving his own demands. He's giving his own demands. The Bakken mission, which has come to an end, requires more of the military, because the militia groups in that area is the principal reason why the French were accepted to be in Mali, because they were accepted because the Malians thought that it would be easier to fight these persons. But when they realized that they are not there to fight these persons but to cause the continuous insecurity, they had no reason to ask the French to leave. So I think it is very easy for the viewers to note that this is the principal reason with regards to the Sahel, that Colonel Henry going to go to Abidjan. He is not in Abidjan because he wants to have just that close relationship. It's because Alassane Dramane Ouattara is using him as a proxy to speak to Assimi Goïta. We should not forget that Assimi Goïta, he is very staying. He is a leader who does not want to take to any of the things they have said, because the Ivorians were the very first people who had to support the heavy hand sanction on Mali when they decided to cut her off from the ECOWAS.
Yeah.
So yes, so we should not forget that they did that, and he never pitched them. And the two countries, interestingly, the two countries continued with their bilateral relationship. Their borders were not closed. They worked as brothers. They moved on as brothers. And the purpose of this sanction was to deter others from thinking about military rulership, which we observed that Chad was about becoming the next country, which we shouldn't forget that today we have a military rule in Sudan, which we also have a military rule in Central African Republic, which some people were afraid that it should not also cross over. But we have a military rule in Chad. If you look at the president of the late person, he is a military ruler. He is still a military person. There has not been any election that put him there formally, as was elected by a democratic elections. So within this area, you can clearly see that it is a military rulership that is succeeding, except for the fact that in Chad, what we have is a military ruler who is in total support of what the French have.
Okay, away from that, we're still talking insecurity, but we are at a time when most African countries are trying to do away with French presence on the African continent. We have seen the case, a stern case in Mali, where, of course, they have tried to eradicate completely the French presence. So what do you think about this military cooperation? Do you think it's a good move, and other African nations should copy from this?
I want to be categorically clear and make this known to every African watching me that I think it is a good move for us to remove these persons from our continent. They are not there for us. They are spies. They are there to continue with their illicit activities, illegal importation of arms into the African continent, handing it over to militia groups, thereby destabilizing the continent to make an easy path for them to continue with their exploitation of the natural resources within the continent, and to also continue with the grip that we have, because the stabilization of the African continent is an easy path of the complete independence of Africans, for those who do not know. Once the African continent gets stabilized as it should be, all of what we are seeing today will not be there. Let me ask you this question, which it's not really for you to respond. It is worth mentioning that for the fact that Britain has the degree of stability which you find today, it makes it very easier, or rather it makes it easier for the Brits to think and take their own decision independently from what others would dictate from them. But in the state of insecurity, people can easily dictate on you because you are looking for that person that will want to help you. If you see what is happening today in Ukraine, where Volodymyr Zelensky today is in a fix. A few days ago, when the International Atomic Agency or the nuclear watchdog was in Ukraine to ensure that the nuclear site in Ukraine should not be touched, just for your viewers to understand where I'm coming from with this analysis, that it should ensure that this area which Russia is taking control over, they should not touch the nuclear site. The Ukrainians were not called. He decries that the Ukrainians were not called. So if there was stability in his country, they would have gone to that site as easy as it is. But because of the insecurity there, they could not go there. They could not go there. And so they were kept. But the Russians were there. So once you have a smaller force, a bigger force determines on you and dictates on you what should happen. So it is the same situation in Africa. Once there is instability in Africa, you will hear these countries that will tell you that no, they are the ones to control you, they are the ones to tell you what needs to be done and things like that. They'll tell you that they are coming to give you military support. They'll tell you that they are coming to train your forces, as if your forces need to be trained to go and fight their people. They are training your forces to fight your people. So why not identify the cause of the problem and make amends and discuss with your people such that there should not be this issue of coming to train your forces to fight against your own people. So you see the hypocrisy. So once you are in total chaos, they thrive more. And since they will thrive more when there is problem, they cannot accept that there should be peace. So the insecurity in Africa is caused by these countries. So it suffices that Africans should understand this and bear in mind that the military relationship is hidden nowhere. So Africans, it is time for Africans to think national. When last did you hear that an African country was called upon to fight in France against the French militias? We have this situation in Monaco. We have this same issue of separation, or we have the separatist movement in France. For persons who do not know, we have separatist crisis in France, where the people of Monaco every now and then they are asking that they want to leave. and the French government has their grip on them. We have the same situation in other countries where we have the minority in America, the people of Texas. At one point in time, they said they want to go. We have the same situation in Britain, where every now and then the people of Northern Ireland will always come out to vote that they want to leave the union. We have the same situation in Spain, where the people of Barcelona will always come up that they want to leave the Spanish union. So you see that the issue of separation is worldwide. And they will not call us that they want to leave, that they want our own support, that we should come and determine their policy, we should come and determine how their military should manage these situations. But when it's in Africa, they will tell us that no, we should allow them, that we should allow that they should come in, we should make way that they should come in and assist us in fighting these persons. Why can't they assist us to come over there? Recently, we saw the case in Britain where they have decided to settle their migrants in Rwanda, and some persons think it's a good thing. These are all spying agents. These are all persons who have decided to destabilize their country. When they must have flooded your country after a while, and you understand exactly what will happen. So these are things we should not take lightly, because in as much as Paul Kagame thinks that he is a good ruler, he is widely appraised by some persons, that the decision he has taken to accept that migrants should be settled in Africa, those seeking asylum should be settled in Africa. We are talking about persons that are coming from Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, the list will go on and on, Yemen. These are persons coming from all of these countries. So when these persons are settled in Africa, what will happen afterward? You'll see what will happen. So you see that when Henry is being received in Cote d'Ivoire by Alassane Ouattara, and some person think it is going to serve for the good of Africa, and some think it will not serve. No, it will serve the good of Africa. Howbeit, we should keep our eyes open. We should bear in mind that the military alliance and the denial of Africans, that we no longer want these people, like we already see it in Mali, is good. I will be happy, because I will be happy to see that in Chad we don't have the French. Okay, it is very unfortunate that we have the French presidency in Central African Republic. We have the same in Cote d'Ivoire. We have the same in Chad. We had the same in Mali, and we had the same in Burkina Faso. We had the same in Niger, and these are all countries which the list will go on and on and on and on and on. You will realize that the whole point in this is they are all spying agents. They are all spywares. I call them in literal terms spywares. The French military is a spyware. The military alliance is a spyware, which is just there because they want to identify and keep on bringing their arms into Africa and hand it over to militia groups to destabilize the continent for their personal greed or for their personal benefits.
You did evoke the issue of total independence on the African continent, and of course, in a bid to achieve this, most African leaders, especially those of the past, what do you think that the different heads of state on the continent, what can they draw from this visit and the cooperations that were discussed in order for the African continent to achieve this total independence, which leaders in the past had actually dreamed of?
I will be calling on the first person I will be calling on here is Macky Sall. I think this is a proper lesson for him to take home, because he should bring this into the African Union and it should be discussed. I will also be calling on other African leaders. I'll be calling on Ahmad of Chad, who feels that you keep holding on the military alliance with France is going to maintain him on power or in power. I want the other African leaders to understand that total independence of Africa basically means that Africans should be the ones to determine who becomes their next president. When there is an election in France, Let me take the case of Bordeaux. The people there are not mobilized by Africans. They determine who should become their president. The person who goes into that Elysee Palace is not determined by Africans. So why should there be so much passion to determine who becomes the next president of Africa? We are not using the euro. We are not using the French francs per se. Why must we use their currency and we say we are independent? Why should they be the ones to determine the commodity we bring in the world market, how much they will pay for, and we say we are independent? Why should our leaders be this quick to sign military alliance with these countries and they will say we are independent? The big question is, why would you need a whip in the house when you have the proper leadership that is required at home for your children? You don't need it. You don't need it. If your leadership is good, your children will be there for you. We don't need an external force to train our forces. Yes, for some people would say that for other reasons we need to train them because we still have physical boundaries, we still have psychological boundaries, and we need to protect our boundaries. Yes, we may have reasons to train our forces because we want to protect our boundaries. Why should we train our forces by a foreign force? That is a loophole. It's a loophole because the conditions under which they train our forces, they come through it and they plant their softwares, they plant their hardwares, and these are the things which they use to monitor us. They use to determine what we are doing. So the total independence of Africa, which is what I'm seeing Mali on the track, I'm seeing Burkina Faso on the track, I'm calling on Macky Sall to copy this. They should emulate this, and they should think about Africa first, because Africa, I said it on your platform some time ago, that Africa is not yet independent. You cannot be independent when another person determines what you sell in the market. When last did the cocoa that comes from Cote d'Ivoire was sold in the world market and the price was determined by the Ivorians? When last was the banana that is coming from Cameroon, the timber that is coming from Cameroon was determined by Cameroonians at the world market? Because under normal circumstances, they need these products. They don't have this product. There is no forest in Marseille. There is no forest in Bordeaux. There is no forest in Monaco. There is no forest in any other part in France. So why should they be the ones to determine how much we sell our product? This is all colonialist hands. I was speaking a few days ago on a sister media where I said it, that colonialism is seen in the desire to go for treatment in Europe. Why, if they truly love us and they want to have treaties with us, for example, why can't they also train us to have that chip that they use to determine how a surgery is conducted using a robot? Why, if they truly love us? If they truly love us, then they should allow us determine the price of the commodity that we have in our market. So this is a total lesson being put out by Colonel Assimi Goïta and Colonel Henry of Burkina Faso and Assimi Goïta of Mali, that Africa first is what Thomas Sankara wants. Africa first is what Muammar Gaddafi wants. And like I said, I will not put it wanted, because they still want this no matter where they are. You should not forget that Patrice Lumumba was actually killed and acid was poured on him because those who did it believed that his graveyard could become an inspirational ground for others to have knowledge. But I want to tell those who did that to Patrice Lumumba that Patrice Lumumba lives in every African. Thomas Sankara is in every African. Muammar Gaddafi is in every African. You have persons like Martin Luther King Jr. is in every African. Nelson Mandela did not give up, he's in every African. Yes. And the pioneer president of Ghana is in every African. So all of these guys, what they had wanted in Africa, as was said, when on the day of Ghana's independence, when Kwame Nkrumah stood up and made it very clear that Africa is not liberated totally until when Africans will see every other Africa as a brother and will remove all the physical boundaries that we have in Africa. So these are persons who made it very clear that Africa is yet to be free, and he made it and said it in the presence of Martin Luther King Jr., that they will not rest until every other country in Africa will be totally liberated. So Macky Sall and the rest should take this to those who have decided to make them puppet. And Macky Sall and the rest should note that the permanent seats that the European Union has in the African Union is a total defiance of what the Africans who had been there before, like Thomas Sankara, Patrice Lumumba, and persons in Cameroon such as persons in Cameroon such as Patrice Lumumba and Mumi Alfred Boigny and the rest, they have always wanted the total liberation of Africa. So please, we are not going to give up as Africans. We will be there because we want the total liberation of Africa.
Indeed, all we want is the total liberation of Africa. In just a few words for us to conclude, what advice can you give to the young generation?
The advice which I have for the young generation is this: Pan-Africanism is not living in Europe and sending a few francs back at home and hoping to have the change that the African continent deserves. Pan-Africanism should be seen and copied as was done by Mao, and when the young Chinese went to France, the United States, and studied and went back home, and China today is a force to reckon with because they developed that. So we are saying that they should be able to come back and refuse that funny ideology that they are there because they think that they are being paid more than what we have back at home. We want to rebuild Africa. And to the young Africans who are still within the African continent, we should bring our leaders to justice. We should bring our leaders to order. We should ensure that there shouldn't be any voter apathy to countries that are still having civilian rulership. And to countries like Mali and Burkina Faso, I want to appreciate the youth in that country because they did not rise up against the coup leaders, which is something to applaud. I want to openly clap for them, that they did quite well. They did not rise up against these persons, rather they stood up to see that things should be made better. I want to call on every African who is in Africa, especially the young persons, to take part fully in political issues, to understand that you cannot in this age develop such apathy and make the change. We have to be involved. The youth do not have the future to lead. The youth are the present, and the youth will always be there to lead. So if the rulership in Africa depends on the over 65% of young persons in Africa who are youth, they should bear in mind that if we keep on sitting on the fence thinking that this person should create this degree of apathy for us to keep on moving away, why they are leveraging on it because they thrive more when we have this apathy, we should bear in mind that without this apathy, they cannot thrive on us, because we become a fertile ground when we have this apathy, which they uses this as a leverage over us, and they will always manipulate. That the young persons in Africa should open their eyes, and we can all change Africa, because when Thomas Sankara came up, when Enes Wanji came up, when Patrice Lumumba came up, when Gaddafi came up, when Nelson Mandela was sent to jail, the list will go on and on and on. When Kwame Nkrumah stood up, they were all young people. They were all young people who did not drop their dreams.
Yes.
And they are moving through with this. So we should not think that allowing things in the hands of the old people to determine the life of the young people means that the old people have won. They should bear in mind that they can only win when the young people refuse to take their responsibility.
Exactly. Thank you immensely, sir, for joining me on today's edition of Voice It.
It's my pleasure. I want your viewers to understand that before you close, I know we are closing and there's no time. The insecurity situation today in Cameroon somehow went sad today within the city of Boya, where some persons were attacked by the non-state armed groups. And like I said, we should not allow things like this to continue. It is because of what others have termed to be crazy youths, but what I see in them is that there are young persons who want change and cannot be communicated to their understanding, not because it is not existing, but it's because of lack of political will. And I want to also openly condemn, as a human rights activist, I want to condemn what happened today, where a young woman was stripped off, a young child was stripped off naked going to school by the non-state armed groups. I want to call on their leaders abroad to bear in mind that persons like this have done this before within the African continent, and when it was the right time, they were brought to order. And the court here in Africa, I will not take them to The Hague, I'll take them here to Africa, where they will be judged and they will actually be given the right place as per the law. Thank you.
Thank you too. Of course, that was a sad incident that took place in the southwest region of the country. Ladies and gentlemen, I have been Jixna Bisay for presentation. Thank you immensely for staying through with us all through today's edition of Voice It. Stay in company of our programs.